Dear Miss Shirin Ebadi, dear Christiane Amanpour, dear Cartoonists for Peace, Madame et Monsieur les conseillers administratifs de la ville de Genève, Monsieur le Président et Madame la Vice-présidente de la Fondation Freedom Cartoonists, Madame Nan Annan, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good evening. On behalf of the Geneva Graduate Institute, it is my pleasure and a great honor to welcome you all tonight at the Maison de la Paix. Today, Geneva celebrates World Peace Freedom, World Press Freedom Day, and editorial cartooning through the presentation of the Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award 2024. It is a pleasure for us at the Institute to be this year again a partner for this exceptional event, which is organized by the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation and the City of Geneva. I would like to express our sincere appreciation to both the Foundation and the City for this partnership, which we value highly. The symbolic dimension of this event, affirming and celebrating freedom of thought and expression, particularly today, is in perfect resonance with our mission and role at the Institute. The courage to think and to say, through a combination of scientific inquiry and critical thinking, is at the heart of what we do here for nearly a century. Today, we have the honor to welcome you, Ms. Ebadi. In 2003, you were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for your dedication to democracy and human rights. In Iran, you took up the struggle for the fundamental rights of children and women, showing the power of courage. And your early action, undoubtedly, has been an inspiration for the women life freedom movement of the last 18 months. You certainly do not remember that, and we talked about it before, but I met you a long time ago in 2006 at ESSEC Business School in France. I had then the honor to welcome you in Cergy-Pontoise, which is a little town outside of Paris, for a series of discussions with our faculty and students then. I still vividly remember this moment and the impact that you had on our community. So I have to say that I'm particularly happy, particularly proud and honored to be able to welcome you again, this time here in Geneva. And I'm convinced that, again, you will inspire all of us in this room. Tonight, we will also have the opportunity to hear about the challenges encountered by female cartoonists in the world. Through their powerful illustrations, cartoonists play an essential role in questioning power structures, initiating conversations, and holding those in authority accountable. Their courageous quest for truth serves as a guiding light in an era where disinformation and censorship pose significant threats to the integrity of our societies and to our individual and collective ability and freedom to think and to speak. I'm looking very much forward to this evening, and I'm now giving the floor to Patrick Chappatte and Marie-Laure.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Merci Marie-Laure pour ces mots. Merci de nous accueillir une nouvelle fois au Graduate Institute et pour célébrer cette journée mondiale de la liberté de la presse.
So this event will be bilingual, mostly French and English. I will be speaking something in between. For those of you who don't speak Persian, make sure you have your headsets. They are available at the entrance.
And I resist in speaking in French. Tous les 2 ans, le 3 mai, la Fondation Freedom Cartoonists et la ville de Genève, vous le savez, décernent ce prix international du dessin de presse, le Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award. Je salue d'ailleurs aujourd'hui la présence de Nan Annan, qui nous fait l'honneur d'être là. Merci madame de nous encourager à poursuivre la vision de votre mari et de défendre les droits humains et la démocratie dans un monde tellement divisé aujourd'hui.
Two years ago, here we were blessed to welcome here on this stage journalist Maria Ressa of the Philippines and Dmitry Muratov of Russia. The 2 Nobel Peace Prize laureates had accepted our invitation to present the Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award. Our 2022 laureates were Gabor Papai of Hungary and Vladimir Kazanevsky of Ukraine.
Cette année, c'est l'avocate emblématique de la liberté, Madame Shirin Ebadi, qui nous fait l'honneur de remettre le prix dans quelques instants. Vous l'entendrez, nous rappeler à quel point le combat des femmes iraniennes pour leurs droits fondamentaux et la démocratie est celui de toutes les femmes. Votre participation, Madame, prend encore plus de relief aujourd'hui quand on pense à Narges Mohammadi, la vibrante militante des droits humains, iranienne comme vous, couronnée du prix Nobel de la paix en 2023, et qui est emprisonnée à Téhéran dans des conditions d'isolement total, une torture blanche selon ses propres termes. Elle est aussi emprisonnée comme la caricaturiste Athéna Farganani, qui a été arrêtée le 13 avril par les gardiens de la Révolution et qui est dans l'attente de son procès en isolement total.
And in a time when journalism and truth are under attack, it's very precious to have with us someone who embodies the ethics of journalism. CNN's chief international anchor, Christiane Amanpour, has received numerous awards. She is a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for Freedom of the Press, an honorary citizen of Sarajevo for her journalism during wartime. In addition, and this is an honor she is bestowing on us, she is a member of the advisory board of the foundation. Thank you very much, Christiane, for being with us today. In spite of a crazy schedule, you told me, okay, I'm doing it. And then you added, unless, of course, there is a breaking news and I need to travel. Well, we're fortunate nothing is happening right now. The world is pretty calm as we speak.
Vous l'avez compris, cette édition de la Fondation Freedom Cartoonist est dédiée aux femmes, à celles qui combattent en Iran, à celles qui résistent en Afghanistan et ailleurs avec un courage exceptionnel, à toutes celles qui se lèvent pour dénoncer les injustices, les violences, les féminicides. Et les dessinatrices participent de son combat pleinement, avec talent, courage et lucidité. Vous allez les entendre et les voir tout à l'heure.
Yes, because later in the evening we'll have a panel discussion of three exceptional cartoonists, Anne Telnez from the USA, Nadia Chiari from Tunisia, and Rashida Tenija from India in conversation with Christiane Amanpour. And since we are saluting today women and journalism, I'd like to acknowledge one of the best investigative journalists of Switzerland, who happens to be my wife, Anne-Frédérique Wiedmann. She's also my personal editor. Every sketch I have to submit to her, and she looks at them without mercy. And we might have some sketches tonight, because we have a bunch of cartoonists in a line here. Guys, if you feel like drawing live, please do so, and then submit your sketches to the editor, Anne-Frédérique.
Before?
Yes. In addition to those I already mentioned, we have Zunzi from Hong Kong, Terry Anderson from Scotland, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, Matt Volker from the USA, Kak from France, Swiss cartoonist, well, Herman is gone, he's going to be back later, Benedict and Peach, I don't know if he's there. Okay, all of them. So, and we have two past recipients of the Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award, Gado from Kenya and Hani Abbas, Palestinian cartoonist from Syria. I want to show a recent cartoon by Hani Abbas. No comment.
No comment. Nous accueillons maintenant, je demande à Monsieur Sami Kanaan, conseiller administratif de la ville de Genève, en charge du département de la culture et de la transition numérique, sans lequel cette cérémonie et l'exposition sur le quai Wilson ne pourraient pas se tenir. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Son discours sera suivi d'un message vidéo du haut-commissaire des Nations Unies aux droits de l'homme, M. Volker Türk, qui nous fait l'amitié et l'honneur de nous l'envoyer parce qu'il est en voyage au Chili.
La transition après ce dessin de Hani Abbas est rude. هاني مبروك بس صعب كتير هلا بدي احكي معا. J'ai quelques restes de mon arabe natal du Liban. Alors je précise d'emblée, je m'associe aux salutations protocolaires et j'aimerais aussi dire que c'est la ville de Genève dans son ensemble qui soutient ce projet avec beaucoup d'engagement. Pas seulement votre serviteur, mais aussi ma collègue ici présente, Marie-Laure, qui d'ailleurs en charge de l'espace public, gère notamment aussi le fait d'accueillir des expositions sur l'espace public, ce que nous faisons avec beaucoup de plaisir et de conviction, et pour d'ailleurs anticiper ce qui va se passer de notre côté, pas du vôtre. À chaque fois que vous nous faites des expositions, nous avons des téléphones d'ambassade. Vous pouvez imaginer lesquels, je ne citerai pas de nom, mais en général liés au dessin qu'il y a sur les quais, avec des diplomates qui sont chargés de nous faire savoir à quel point c'est choquant. Il y a plein d'arguments. C'est du genre, en parlant d'eux-mêmes, par rapport à leur culture, c'est offensant. C'est un manque de respect envers des élus, des dirigeants, pas toujours élus d'ailleurs, que c'est choquant, que bref, et que tôt ou tard, et c'est ça que je trouve passionnant et choquant, mais passionnant et important, vient l'argument que oui, les droits humains, c'est universel, mais pas tant que ça. Respectivement, que l'interprétation peut varier selon les contextes culturels. Ce qui est évidemment un chemin assez dangereux, mais qui est malheureusement pratiqué par de nombreux responsables politiques. C'est tellement pratique d'adapter les droits humains à sa sauce. Plus sérieusement, j'aimerais revenir à la fondation Freedom Cartoonist. Très heureux à nouveau de pouvoir vous accueillir, vous soutenir. Enfin, vous accueillir, je remercie surtout le Graduate Institute de nous accueillir aujourd'hui, Marie-Laure, mais de soutenir votre démarche qui est fondamentale. Dans un monde idéal, nous aimerions simplement honorer d'excellents dessinateurs ou d'excellentes dessinatrices de presse. Faire en quelque sorte les Césars, les Oscars, et de les différencier, de les féliciter, de faire un palmarès. Dans un monde qui tourne juste, où il n'y aurait pas d'enjeu de liberté d'expression. Nous savons malheureusement que la mission que se donne la Fondation est un peu plus complexe, et en soi regrettable, mais indispensable. C'est de venir en soutien à celles et ceux qui s'expriment et qui prennent des dangers réels. Et quand on dit dangers réels, ce n'est pas des petites tracasseries administratives. Ce sont des interdictions d'exercer, la censure, des emprisonnements, voire des meurtres. Et c'est une réalité qui, malheureusement, n'est pas en train de se dissoudre ou de reculer. Il y a plein de situations inquiétantes. Bien sûr, des régimes autoritaires qui se multiplient. Et Reporters sans frontières mesure littéralement l'arrivée d'un régime autoritaire et l'impact sur la liberté d'expression. Pas besoin d'aller très loin. Il y a le cas de la Hongrie en Europe, par exemple. Mais c'est aussi des patrons privés, notamment des grands groupes de presse. M. Bolloré jure qu'il ne prend aucune influence sur le contenu de ses titres, leur orientation ou les équipes dirigeantes, mais on sait que ce n'est pas le cas. Il y a déjà Rupert Murdoch qui avait donné l'exemple dans le monde anglo-saxon. Et c'est presque pire encore parce qu'il y a encore moins de prise sur ces personnes. Et la tendance est vraiment une régression. Même, on peut se demander les motivations réelles d'Elon Musk quand il rachète Twitter et à la fois libère tout ce qui est relativement peu ragoûtant, tout en ayant des algorithmes secrets qui permettent d'influencer l'orientation des contenus que vous voyez, qui sont diffusés, c'est le cas de tous les réseaux sociaux d'ailleurs, et quitte à influencer par exemple des élections démocratiques, on l'a vu entre autres en Grande-Bretagne ou aux États-Unis, même en Suisse, les dernières élections fédérales, et là ce n'était pas Elon Musk, c'était les Russes, qui ont soutenu certaines tendances en faveur de l'UDC. Je ne dis pas que l'UDC était au courant, mais la police fédérale a détecté des schémas d'influence qui poussaient notamment des messages très agressifs contre les migrants, parce que la stratégie russe est de soutenir des forces populistes qui déstabilisent les régimes occidentaux. Donc pour revenir à la liberté d'expression au dessin de presse, on ne peut que saluer le courage de celles et ceux qui prennent ces risques, et bien sûr de celles et ceux qui les appuient et qui essaient de les appuyer, de les soutenir, de les défendre et de les accompagner envers et contre tout. Si on pense à il y a 2 ans, tu l'as dit Patrick, Maria Reza par exemple aux Philippines, le nombre de procédures judiciaires et d'autres problèmes qu'elle a, M. Muratov aussi il y a 2 ans qui est toujours en Russie et qui essaye, il m'a même dit qu'il était optimiste pour l'avenir du pays, ce qui m'a fait plaisir, sincèrement, je l'ai vu récemment au FIFDH, on essaye d'y croire. Et puis bien sûr les expositions sur l'espace public comme un des instruments, parce que ça permet peut-être, au-delà du cercle des personnes ici présentes, que nous soyons plus nombreux, aussi dans la population au sens large, à prendre conscience de ces enjeux, à comprendre ce qui se passe et y être sensible. Donc vraiment un grand merci à toute l'équipe de Freedom Cartoonist, bien sûr les dessinateurs et dessinatrices de presse, si ça se trouve il y aura des dessins aujourd'hui, je m'en réjouis, Nous avons besoin de ces esprits acérés, de ces plumes vives. En tant qu'élus, même si on est prosaïquement des élus locaux, c'est clair qu'un dessin de presse peut faire une petite piqûre, même un peu blessant, mais ça fait partie du jeu, et heureusement, parce qu'on nous rappelle qu'on est des êtres humains faillibles et que personne n'est au-dessus des autres. Donc un grand merci, et je me réjouis de découvrir avec vous, notamment aujourd'hui, les femmes dessinatrices à l'honneur de cette cérémonie. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée.
Thank you to the City of Geneva and the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation for the invitation to speak at this important event. I regret not to be able to be with you in person. When I think of the values of journalism, I think of trust, truth, and integrity. I think of the countless, fearless individuals daring to question, daring to challenge power, risking their lives to document atrocities, corruption, and crime, and to stand up against oppression. 2023 marked one more devastating year for journalism. 71 journalists and media workers were killed. It was a year characterized again by impunity. Only 13% of these murder cases have been investigated, and 320 journalists and media workers were imprisoned, the highest number ever. When we lose a journalist, we lose our eyes and ears to the outside world. We lose a voice for the voiceless. World Press Freedom Day was established to celebrate the value of truth and to protect the people who work bravely to uncover it. There's no doubt that cartoonists are among them. Their works of art are often works of courage. Art has an extraordinary ability to highlight the impact of rights denied, but also the promise of rights delivered. Beyond raising awareness, it can start meaningful conversations, empower individuals, and nurture real change. As we mark World Press Freedom Day, we also have an opportunity to celebrate the invaluable role of cartoonists in safeguarding our fundamental right to freedom of expression. I honor their work, I pay tribute to their work, their determination and their creativity. Our world today is enduring multiple and overlapping crises, from conflict to soaring inequalities to the threat of climate change. Art, with its capacity to inspire, heal, and build solidarity, can certainly be one of the tools we can use to help create the space for the hope and freedom the world so urgently needs. Thank you for everything that you do.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christiane Amanpour, who will introduce Dr. Shirin Ebadi. Christiane, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. To be honest, Dr. Shirin Ebadi does not need any further introduction. The whole world knows exactly who she is because of all the great things she's done. And in a moment, I'll get to some of it. But I first wanted to say, adding my thanks and appreciation to everybody who you've already mentioned, and also the handful of friends from a long time ago who represent elements of my life. I'm so happy to have been here. My childhood in Iran, which has shaped my entire career, my professional work, and actually my colleague who helped me do the first story on Shirin Ebadi in the American press, and a fellow mom, solidarity when you really need it on the personal front. So all of this is very, very helpful to me, and my personal life has been has really guided my work as well. And what is my work? It is like the work of the cartoonists, and I'm delighted to be amongst these brave, brave women. But especially to start this conversation with Shirin Ebadi. I would just tell you about my little tranche of first getting to know her. When the president of Iran changed and nobody knew it was going to happen in 1997, his name was Mohammad Khatami. And at that time, and maybe still, you can tell me, Shirin, he was considered a reformer. The entire system was shocked that this person, and not a very hardline, ideologue, comparatively, had won the election. Because the people of Iran, who we see so oppressed today, wanted a change. And they chose the best of what they had on offer. And at that time, I went to Tehran to try to tell a story of this reform period. And I went with Andrew for 60 minutes. And we discovered, I guess Andrew discovered, Shirin Ebadi. And we went to her office, and we went to the courtroom, and we got the images of the key trial that she was involved in, defending the mother of a young girl who, under the Iranian Islamic law, had been handed to her father during a divorce, and the father essentially was responsible for her death. And Shirin Ebadi was able to change the law in Iran to give, to change the automatic custody that put a child in the hands of a father, and that respected the rights of the child unlike ever before. And I'd like to know, well, we'll ask her a little bit more about that. But that's how I first got to know her. And she has really been the pride of Iran and the pride of Iranian women. We have 2 Nobel Peace Prize winners in Iran, 2. Both of them are women. Shirin was the first. Narges Mohammadi is the other one who sits in jail to this day, and who we work very hard to put her story out in the public as often and as much as we can. And I've certainly interviewed a lot of her family members, her daughter, and the others to try to get her story out. In short, the Iranian women, the Iranian defenders of human rights are the bravest people around, really, because they exist in their own country under the most terrible authoritarian regime that is frankly dangerous for them. So let us get to more of the story with Shirin on human rights, Iran, and on how these cartoons and journalism actually supports free, independent journalism and is a key pillar of all our democratic systems. So, Shirin Ebadi, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the stage. Yeah, nice to be. Oh, she's doing it. I don't take orders very well. Shirin is going to deliver a speech first, and then we're going to talk.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you all. I am very happy indeed to be with you on such a day, such an important day, which highlights the importance of the cartoonists. I'm so happy to be here on such an occasion. Allow me first to congratulate all journalists on the World Press Freedom Day and editorial cartooning. And I would like to highlight the plight of those who are currently behind bars for being journalists. In many countries, journalists are deprived of the freedom you have in your countries. One such country is my country, Iran. At present, some 100 journalists in Iran and bloggers who are in prison. And they've been charged for what? For writing the truth, because they've been trying to highlight the truth, and the regime does not want the people to know the truth. Anyone who says anything, be it in the press, be it on internet, be it through art, through cartoons, has to face the wrath of the regime. I would like to highlight the plight of a young man who is a rapper and who is now on death row just because he's a rapper and he raps. And we are all worried that they carry out this death sentence. Why? Because his name is Too Much Salehi, just for singing a few songs. A very courageous man who, through his lyrics and rap, has tried to highlight these atrocities of the Iranian regime. I would like to pay my respect for the cartoonists whose job is to highlight the truth through their art, not through writing, but through their art. This is an art which, especially in countries that have been suffering from dictatorship for many years, is even more important. Why? Because in such countries there is so much depressing truth, and every day people have to hear about deaths, arrests, death sentences, and cruelty of the government and brutality of the government, that people are frustrated. They're tired of even listening to the news anymore. I have heard this from my compatriots. I say to them, "Oh, something really horrible has happened." And they say to me, "Look, what can we do? We've learned to live with that." They are so upset, but they're trying to ignore it. But when they see a cartoon, because cartoon has the element of irony, it catches their attention more than a piece of writing, and these cartoons start a dialogue. So the art of this cartoonist is to wake up people who are suffering from fatigue and are tired of listening to upsetting news or reading about it. Of course, dictators don't like cartoonists, just as they don't like journalists, because they don't like freedom of expression. And in my country, we have some excellent cartoonists who have experienced prison. Many of them have had to escape the country because they couldn't work in the country. At present, we have a young cartoonist, a young female cartoonist, Atina Farakani, is currently behind bars, and we have called for her freedom. Atina had already experienced prison earlier. She'd experienced 2 years imprisonment, and she's been re-arrested and re-imprisoned because she drew a cartoon of Iranian missiles. Iran is a country which is very advanced when it comes to military weapons. However, this very country, which is incidentally a very rich country, has a population 70% of whom are poor and 40% are under the poverty line. And it's important to highlight this and to tell this regime what they're doing is so wrong. While people are looking in rubbish bins to find food, this regime is building weapons, the most advanced weapons. But the dictators don't like to be told off about this. Wherever you see a successful dictator, be sure that this dictator wants to rule his people and oppress. So once again, I would like to thank journalists, cartoonists, those who use their pen, their art, their words to stand up to these despotic regime. And I know that they will be victorious, because freedom will be victorious. Thank you.
Shirin Ebadi, let's talk a little bit now. I referred back to a moment where a window was slightly opened in Iran in 1997. I don't know whether you agree, but that's how we reported it, that there was a moment of reform. And I remember, because I interviewed them, so many who were, very much on the conservative side had become journalists. Journalists in Iran were on the cutting edge of reform. Do you agree with that? And what role do you believe journalists played in that period of time?
Journalists have always been the engine of a society's progress. They highlight the faults and weaknesses, and the people, in particular, political activists, sociologists, professors, they talk about solutions and the journalists echo their words. So yes, of course they played an important part in the reform in an era which became known as the era of reforms in Iran. But what happened? What happened to this era of reforms? For a very, very short period. For a very short period. We enjoyed this reform. There were many newspapers. We had freedom of the press, but unfortunately this period did not last very long because of the political structure in Iran, which is a despotic theocracy. This reform process could not continue. Many journalists were arrested, and in a very unjust sentence that was issued within a couple of hours, they shut down 90 newspapers, even those who hadn't done anything. And they shut them because they said in the future they might say something that's against the regime. And since then, unfortunately, the situation in Iran has exacerbated.
Do you believe that what you achieved in court for the protecting and codifying the rights of children back then, could you do that today? Could any lawyer like yourself do that in Iran today?
Unfortunately, no. At the moment, the circumstances have changed. And as I said, the conditions in Iran are getting worse and worse every day. And I'm sure you know that in September 2022, a movement started in Iran, which was sparked by the killing of a young Iranian woman called Mahsa Amini. Just since then, 120 lawyers have been prosecuted. Why? Because they defended some of the protesters. So the lawyers who defended the protesters ended up in prison. Some of them have been given long-term sentences. Some have been freed on bail. We have lawyers who've had 10 years prison sentence are currently behind bars. At the moment, we have 3 very prominent lawyers who are in prison. Why? Just because they did their duty and they tried to defend their clients in prison. They were in prison.
Mahsa Amini, and everybody remembers, everybody, especially in the diaspora and outside, were energized by what they were seeing happen in Iran. They challenged the regime unlike any other time before, but it still has failed to ignite real change. I reported on the so-called Green Revolution of 2009. It still died without change. There were the student protests of 1999. There was the anti-poverty protest, the economic protests of 2017 and 2019, when people came out. But it hasn't affected real change at all. What will it take?
As you said, any movement in Iran has been repressed violently by the regime, yet another movement has started. Iran is like a powder keg, which could explode at any minute because of the wrong policies of the government, because of the embezzlements by the government, by the widespread violation of human rights. Iran is like a powder keg, and it could explode at anything, any spark. And the regime the crackdown by the regime is becoming more and more brutal. But this powder keg is still there, and it's becoming more and more ready to explode. Be sure that there will soon be a conflagration that will burn all the pillars of the government. And of course, we Iranian people deep down, yes, we want changes, but we would love those changes to take place without bloodshed and peacefully, which is why it's taken so long. Otherwise, yes, people could have taken up arms and fought the regime, but because over 80% of the Iranian people are opposed to this regime, we're sure that if they took up arms, they would have managed to topple the regime. But fortunately, the movements have been peaceful so far, through dances, through lyrics, through singing, through removal of their headscarf and hijab. That is how they're showing their protests, which is why the gap between the people and the regime is becoming wider. Remember the former USSR? Within 1 week it was toppled. Nobody ever thought that the Soviet Union would collapse the way it did. It's the same with Iran. Yes, the regime may think that everything is quiet now and they've attained victory, but they are not as strong as the former Soviet Union was. Bear that in mind. And the regime is becoming weaker and weaker, and it's losing even their own opponents.
My studio a few months ago, during the height of the crackdown on the Woman Life Freedom Movement, you told me that democracy would come to Iran through the window that the women had opened. And Mahsa Amini comes from the Kurdish part of Iran. The Kurds believe in women's rights and equality and dignity as an engine for wider human rights and freedom. Do you still believe that democracy will come through the window that they've just opened? That it will be women?
Definitely that will be the case. And it is precisely for that reason that even men have been supporting the Iranian feminist movement, because they know that the victory of women would be a prelude to democracy in Iran, because despotism, authoritarianism came with repression of women. Because when this regime came to power, it forced women to cover their hair. Because they saw women as a threat. That's why. It was one of the first laws that was adopted by the regime was that a man can have up to 4 wives. And they adopted other misogynistic laws as well. So just as this dictatorship came to power by repressing women, be sure that democracy will come to Iran with the victory of the women and through women. Women will be victorious.
The sad truth is that even the women who dared not to wear their hijabs, even after the protests, have now been subjected to a big crackdown. They now have to wear their hijabs again. And as you mentioned, Toumaj, the rapper, Shervin, the singer, Baraye, they're all, all of these, even these cultural forces are in jail and threatened. But what I want to ask you finally is what many people here might want to try to understand. Whenever there's a demonstration, an uprising in Iran, the expatriates, the diaspora, suddenly think that this is it, this is the final thing. There are 5 million Iranians who live abroad. That's about 70% of the population. They have, 7%. They have a huge power, obviously, but they're completely disunified. They have no democratic vision. They have no attempt, it's all in competition and it's all very individualistic. What do you think the diaspora should do, like in many other countries in this kind of situation?
The people who are inside Iran, because of the repression and the brutal crackdown, cannot openly stand up to the regime. So this is the duty of the Iranian diaspora, to make sure that the voices of the Iranians inside the country is heard outside. So in that way they continue their struggle. But how come they haven't been successful so far? The opposition, if they unite, be sure that they will be able to topple this oppressive regime. But there are two issues as a result of which the opposition have not managed to unite. One is the Republicans and one is the monarchists in Iran. There is a group of oppositions who want a monarchy, and there's another group that want Republicans. And then you get the extremist nationalists groups, and they are saying we should have a federalism, and that's usually the ethnic minorities. They want a federal government, and the extremists are against that. So you see, you get so many different groups who have been opposing each other for the past 40-odd years. But fortunately, they've come to the conclusion that it would be better if they unite in order to bring about a secular democratic government. If you have a democratic secular government, you could have a monarchy like Norway, or you could have a republican which is secular like France and democratic. So these opposing groups have managed to shorten the gap among them. And this is what the government, the regime in Iran fears, that they're becoming close to each other, they're uniting. But I have to say that fortunately, they have learned a lesson from the past mistakes. They have learned that these two gaps, these two vacuums must be filled. So they know that once they have to first unite and topple the regime, then they can decide whether they want a government like France or like Norway. Then you can decide whether you want a constitution that's based on federalism or something else. This is a decision the opposition has come to a consensus about, that let's topple the regime, then make a decision as to what type of regime we want. So I know that this regime will be toppled because the opposition that was not united before are uniting now, because they know that their differences were just working to the interest of the regime. Look, the truth has come to, now they know the truth. I see a bright future for Iran personally, and I know that this regime is not going to stay. There is no doubt. I promise you, you and I will be sitting here one day having a discussion when the regime will no longer be in existence.
Shirin Ebadi, thank you so much. I'm going to take you down to your seat again.
Thank you. This was such a precious moment, really. And now we want to talk about women in political cartooning. There is more and more of them. And women cartoonists, as we said, are fighting a double battle, the battle for freedom of opinion and the fight for women's rights. So we know women are good at multitasking, but still. We will hear about the situation of three emblematic women. Anne Telnais of the Washington Post. Nobody captures Donald Trump the way she does. Nadia Chiari, alias also known as Willis from Tunis, which became a hero of the Tunisian revolution through her emblematic cat. She named her cartoon character, it's a cat, after her own cat. And Rashida Taneja, author of a very popular Sanitary Panels, a very popular online webcomics on politics, minority rights, and daily life in India. So please welcome to the stage the three of them, with Christiane again.
Which one is mine? Did I lose
I think
mine?
that this one's yours.
Oh, dear God, I'm useless. And I work in this business. So, welcome. I just wanted to say, I don't know, Nan Annan, whether Kofi was ever caricatured, but was he? And how he reacted as Secretary General of the United Nations. But the one thing I will say is that he was a rare leader who actually appreciated the power of journalism and the collaboration that actually good investigative and humanitarian journalism could do, and he engaged with us very seriously. So it's great. It's great to have that memory and to remember that some leaders, you know, they engage. And I'm just really happy to talk to you guys because, you know, we've had some really important and interesting human rights, political, you know, conversations just now. But the atmosphere around government, around society, is also about pictures and art and design and how you actually show the world to people. So Patrick said, I think it was you who said in your last essay, that one of the things about cartoons that's so powerful is that people have a very short attention span, and shorter now. They don't have maybe the time to read long articles or to, you know, to listen to long TV reports, but they can connect to pictures. So that is a great strength. So I want to start with Anne because, as Patrick said, nobody does Donald Trump better. I think the whole world is rather afraid of a second, you know, Trump 2.0. Can we put some of the pictures up and we can talk about? Okay, so this isn't Trump, but we're going to talk about it in a minute. This is the women issue. So tell everybody what you're saying here.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So this is actually, it's from 2003, so it's a while back, so disregard those headlines. But at the time, I just remember I do cartoons about all kinds of things, but at that point, I was thinking, this is just getting so frustrating. We just can't seem to fix anything. And I thought, well, there's not any women in charge. Perhaps that's the problem. So I thought this was actually kind of I'm not much of a funny cartoonist, but I thought, this is kind of funny. You wouldn't believe the reaction I got from some men on this one. I mean, they just were so appalled that I would actually consider this. I'm like, hey, lighten up. I mean, maybe it is time to give us, a chance to do something. So that was the cartoon I did. This just isn't working. Why don't you let us take over a while?
And that this is this is, gay marriage, and look at this one.
Right, and this one, again, this is an older one. I've been doing this for a while. This is from 2003. This is before gay marriage was really acceptable. It's the first time we really had, a real debate in the United States. And I mean, as was mentioned before, there's not a lot of women in this business. Even in the United States, we really don't have many women editorial cartoonists, and I was watching all my male colleagues approach it from one way. They were making, silly comments about, people, 2 men or 2 women getting married, and I thought, I was listening to the debate on the Senate floor, and I don't remember which senator it was, but he was so outraged because the sanctity of marriage was somehow being, we can't do this, the sanctity of marriage, and I thought, well, wait a minute, does he even know about what marriage was? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, you were the property of your husband. Even in the Western world, we couldn't vote in the United States until the early, 1920s. We couldn't get loans. We couldn't do any of that stuff.
You couldn't have a credit card without your husband's...
You couldn't have a credit card, exactly.
Yeah, in your own name.
And I thought, well, this is where it's really good to have diversity in editorial cartooning, because you get a different viewpoint. So I just thought, here we are in a marriage, we're having a lovely gay marriage, and this woman, and you can see the expression on her face, she's like, so, which one of you gets to endure centuries of second-class status and being legally considered the property of your husband? So it's just a different viewpoint.
And actually, yes, you did it a long time ago, but the issue of personal individual space, particularly for women, and even the potential crackdown on gay rights and on voting rights is very real in 2024 America, which is why this election is at stake. Now, while we have you, okay, this is the Equal Pay Day. Basically, explain that. Okay,
so this is a GIF. You just saw this. I do some animation because that's where I started out, was in animation. And gee, who is that? Is it me? So I was just thinking, I know that I am not paid equal to my male colleagues. I mean, I know it because that's just the way it is. We all know that we don't get equal pay, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I do the same thing they do. I have been doing it just as long or longer than many of them, and I should be paid exactly what they're paid, or more. Yeah.
And I just want to end this little bit with you on the last one, which is, well, not the last one, but the one that we want to talk about, which is political. So in the 2015-16 presidential campaign, there was a senator from Texas called, what's his name? Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah. And you tell us what this is, because this didn't just cause an uproar, it nearly cost you your job.
It was difficult. It was a really difficult time. This was very early on in social media becoming very important in the news business. We had to post our stuff on Twitter. I was very active on Twitter, and it was around Christmas time. And as I do, I was kind of had the television on, and I was drawing an idea, and they had political ads on. And if you remember, Senator Ted Cruz did a little spoof about reading Christmas books to his 2 young girls, and they were 2 little girls with the wife there. No big deal. They do that all the time. Now, there's an unspoken rule in the United States: you do not attack young children of politicians. They have no say in this. You know, you can't. I mean, you can attack older children that are adults, like the Trumps. That's okay. But not the younger ones, right? But all of a sudden, my ears perked up because in this political ad, they had the eldest daughter, who I think was 8 at the time, actually read from a script. She was very good. She takes after her father. And I thought, hey, he's putting his children and he's manipulating his children. So I did a cartoon. This is actually an animated cartoon where he's cranking it. And this, you know, if you've got to be older, you know, this is all about the street musician. And he's got usually a couple of monkeys like parading and trying to get money from the public. And this is where social media has become another minefield for editorial cartoonists. There were some special interest groups and supporters of Ted Cruz that ran with it. And they were outraged, and they said, oh, how dare she attack those children? And unfortunately, my news media, not you, but I heard so many talking heads who didn't even bother to watch the whole ad condemn me because of this cartoon, said that I attacked it was completely unacceptable. And I thought, did you even do your homework before you started talking about this? You're supposed to watch the whole ad. You're supposed to understand what editorial cartoonists do, and most of them did not. Mm-hmm. And I still remember standing in front of my computer. This is close to Christmas, right? So it's kind of an emotional time, sometimes Christmas. I'm watching my Twitter feed look like you know, one of those slot machines, just going and going, and all of a sudden I'm going, and I'm typing to my editor, I go, I just want to warn you, something's happening. And unfortunately, because it was very early in social media, the Washington Post was not ready for this. And they took the cartoon down, they issued an apology. I thought that I would have to issue one. They did not ask me to do it, and frankly, I would have quit if they had. So,
I'm going to come back to you in a bit,
sorry.
But that leads me to you, Nadia, and yours is called Willis from Tunis. Basically, it's a tomcat who tells the news. Tell me why you decided to come up with the cat. What is this symbolism?
Bonsoir. Vous m'entendez?
Can you hear me? I chose the cat because, well, I did it the easy way. It's the name of my cat, Willis. And it's the symbol in Tunisia. There are stray cats all over the place, and I take care of them. And they're wild, they're free, they're independent, and they just wouldn't obey. You can't rule them, and I love it. So I thought that's the very idea that I want to convey. And it was also a way for me to hide behind this cat, because I was trained as a citizen in a dictatorship. And there's also this La Fontaine tradition of using animal figures to escape from censorship, and I love cats.
You know, with feeling okay about it and not at risk. I want to go to another of your images, because as we all know, okay, so this is, I'm just going to say, the molocracy and their beards suffocating the cat/woman. It says, I can't breathe, and it's from the images of what happened to George Floyd. Explain what you were saying there.
Alors pour le journal pour lequel je travaille.
So I work for a French newspaper, unfortunately not in Tunisia. And in this French newspaper, there is this reference to Huxley, The Best of the Worlds. And then so there are references to the international news. And I'm very much interested in women's rights issues that are disasters all over the world. And so, yes, I made this cartoon about this violence that women in Iran undergo, and so it was a kind of mixture of both information to show that oppression is the same in Iran as in Floyd's case.
Is very, very interesting. I'm just going to hold it up. You're not going to see it, but essentially it is the foot. Oh, here it is. Oh, well done, Patrick. So, so it's the foot of authority on the, shutting up, their cries for freedom, and then there's one below where there's a scream. I don't know. Can you read the legend? I just think it's really funny. Before the revolution, it was like this, but today, luckily, we've got freedom of speech to shout in pain.
Eh oui. Malheureusement, aujourd'hui.
Unfortunately, it's not just about women. All Tunisians, journalists, with the current president. So there is one law text that makes the fake news are considered like crimes, but then it doesn't define what the fake news is. And so they can be sentenced to prison or fines, especially if these fake news are about civil servants. And since this law was passed, hundreds of journalists had cases. There's one journalist who's in jail, and a colleague of mine, Tawfiq Amran, is also going to have his trial. Another journalist, because he just posted a cartoon, now will have a trial too. So it's getting worse and worse every day.
Countries, it started that fire, and there was so much. There was so much optimism. But are you saying that there's no ability for cartoonists to do political work in Tunisia right now?
On continue toujours.
We're still going on. We go on doing.
Non, mais je publie sur les réseaux.
Well, I also publish them on the social media, and so my work is seen. And I wrote an article that was published yesterday about Tunisian journalists, so I go on expressing myself. We're not going to shut up, although we're isolated, although it's complicated. We have to go on being active with the Tunisian Journalist Guild, and when there's a trial, people go on fighting.
From India, you also poke fun at what's going on there, and particularly it's very, very dicey right now. India's in the midst of an election. It takes 6 weeks, and there is a general feeling that it is getting more and more Hindu nationalist. And the BJP party is really exerting, sort of all its power. Journalists are cracked down on, the opposition is cracked down on, and this is the world's largest democracy. What are you saying with this cartoon? Look at the one behind you that we've put up.
Yeah, so I made this comic in response to police brutality against student protesters. So there was a very Islamophobic law that was passed, or was about to be passed, and there were large-scale protests around the country, and even in the world, actually. And there was a lot of brutality from the police towards protesters, and what that did was just made more and more people rise up. Mm-hmm. And I really loved this comic because it, you don't need language, you don't need to understand context, like it's also very, it's evergreen. You can use it in any of our situations.
Well, like what's happening on the campuses in the United States.
100%.
It was the police entering that caused
exactly.
the wildfire of protests to spread across the country.
Absolutely.
When you do that, what kind of reaction do you get? And it's not just that. You've done things essentially highlighting with the yellow flag, the orange flag, the color of the BJP, the nationalistic, the creeping, authoritarian nationalism. What kind of reaction do you get?
I'm primarily post on social media, which is like a double-edged sword. So there is an outpouring of love and appreciation for the work I do, but there is also a lot of trolling and, threats of physical violence and threats of legal action. So, that's something I think you have to live with if you're an outspoken person on the internet in India, mm-hmm. especially. So yeah, go on.
I'm going to put another one up, which, does take up this theme a little bit, but we all know that women in public life, whether they're journalists, cartoonists, politicians, whoever they are, get terribly abused online. In your situation, do you feel that as a woman you are particularly singled out?
Yeah, so I think it depends on your identity. A woman on the internet will face gendered trolling, right? A Muslim person will face Islamophobic trolling. A Dalit person will face casteist trolling. So I think it very much depends on what identity you're going online with, and the trolls are ruthless, right? They're going to find something and just try to get you with it. So it does depend on identity a lot.
And can I go back to you, because people look at the United States as the bastion of the First Amendment, freedom of expression. And yet you talk about what happened to you. They pulled down that cartoon of Ted Cruz from the Washington Post, and you've spoken about a creeping sort of self-censorship, and how actually, and I was talking to Patrick about it as well, how political cartoonists are gradually being, they're being, I don't know, they're being removed, disappeared from publications. Can you speak to that and what you think that means in terms of the consequences?
Yeah, so in the United States we have the First Amendment, which means the government cannot censor us. But we work for businesses, and businesses, they can do whatever they want, really. So if they don't like what you're drawing or the images that you're using, you will not have a job. So yes, I think there is a certain amount of self-censorship. If you have a family to feed and you want to keep your job, you have to deal with that. But I think also, at least for me, I do think that one of the problems now is, and it's again the double-edged sword, as was mentioned, of social media, is yes, we do have our work seen more, but you also get people that have absolutely no tolerance for something that they think is insulting. And also they misrepresent cartoons. That is a big problem, I think, is that they come in and they will redefine what your cartoon is. And it was funny, with the Cruz cartoon that you showed, because it was new and everybody was taken aback, I basically said nothing. I kind of just fell silent. Nowadays, if somebody tries to explain my cartoon incorrectly on social media, I will repost it and I will let all my followers go after them. Because you have to stand up for yourself and explain what your message was. And as we all know, images are very powerful. The Charlie Hebdo situation showed that, unfortunately. And we just have to stand up for, honestly, just free speech, free expression. This is what we do.
Just in our last few minutes, you mentioned, and I covered obviously the Charlie Hebdo massacres and then the following ones in Paris in 2015. But we see this year, at least 100, according to the CPJ, media and journalists killed in Gaza and in the West Bank and in Lebanon, but mostly in Gaza. And there are people all over the world right now on World Press Freedom Day struggling and dying to tell the story. And I wonder whether you ever think, or is it an unfair comparison? Well, first of all, have you seen meaningful, I'm going to ask you and then ask you all, meaningful cartoons from that area? I don't even know whether this is a decent question to ask given what's going on, but have cartoonists and satirists, storytellers in graphic design, actually come out of this war in between Israel and Gaza? Have you seen anything? Have you noticed anything?
In terms of political cartoons, I have seen some fantastic artists, Palestinian artists, speak about what is happening on the ground in extremely creative ways. We saw a comic at the beginning as well.
We saw that,
Yeah, so I think there is very inspiring work coming, and it is extremely powerful because, like you said, imagery, you see an image and it can move you in so many ways rather than reading, or even like dehumanizing Palestinian lives and saying, oh, these are the figures of these are the number of people that have died. So it is much more powerful to see imagery that shows Palestinian resistance in a powerful and empowering way.
And Nadia, what do you think is more dangerous, or do you think being a cartoonist is as dangerous as being a TV correspondent or a writer? Do you see that there's any difference?
Non, je pense qu'il y a la même chose. Alors, je voulais répondre aussi, il y a des dessinateurs.
I also wanted to mention Mohamed Sabane, who's a Palestinian cartoonist, and Amy Abbas, who's here, who does a beautiful job. There are very powerful cartoons that are emerging. But I don't think that we are more endangered than other journalists. But it's true that images are maybe more powerful or more straightforward than long articles. But it's freedom of speech in general that is endangered.
Given what's happening on campuses now, given what's happening, politicians are hijacking, whether it's protest journalism, whatever it is, for their own purposes, and it's an election year. Do you feel that there's going to be less courage, creativity by journalists and particularly cartoonists, and more self-censorship, or how do you see it going in the US?
I do feel a different atmosphere now. You have to be a little careful about, and of course it depends on where you're working, which editor you're working with. I have felt it myself. I feel like I have more cartoons that haven't been approved because of images.
Mm-hmm.
Certain images are just too much. It's a difficult line to follow. So yeah, it is more difficult, and I do think it comes to the fact that there's a lot of things going on right now. There's a lot of people speaking out, and when you have social media, it really makes it go fast,
Yep.
And it just propels. So I think as cartoonists, we continue to speak out, but you have to kind of shift. You have to kind of see what's going on. And I've always had great admiration, especially for my colleagues in the Arab world, because they have so many restrictions, but they manage to find a way to make a point and speak their mind. So, we won't give up.
And Nadia's doing it with Willis from Tunis and Rashida, and thank you all so much. That was wonderful. Thank you. Let's go down. My bit's over.
Thank you. We'll now move to the second part of the event. But first, while we remove some furniture, do we have maybe a few sketches that were made live? Do we have that? I don't know. Surprise me. Oh, here we go. Matt Volker. Gado, you just drew that? Just now? Wow. Gado, with your... That's Gado with Hani Abbas pencil. It's a collaboration. Who's that? Terry Anderson. Hani Abbas. CAC. Il ressemble un peu à des spermatozoïdes quand même. Okay, now is the time to announce the winners of the 2024 Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award of the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation and the City of Geneva. So we need to move to the next slide, please. This International Cartoon Award is presented every 2 years since 2012. It salutes the talent and courage of cartoonists who work in the most difficult circumstances. Past winners are from, first year it was Iran, 4 cartoonists from Iran, 2 in Tehran and 2 in exile, who got the award. Then Syria, Egypt, Kenya, Malaysia, Hungary, and Ukraine. They received their awards from the hands of Kofi Annan. The biennial presentation of the Kofi Annan Courage in Cartooning Award alternates with the Cartoon Award of our American partner organization, Cartoonist Rights. So it's a transatlantic cartoonist awards giving partnership. It's a league of cartoonist organizations meant to ensure the greatest possible visibility for our laureates. And we have Matt Volker and Terry Anderson, our president and director of Cartoonist Rights. And we have also this exhibition, we're going to talk about it on the shores of Lake Geneva in collaboration with another sister organization, and we are very close because we were kind of born together, siblings, Cartooning for Peace. And we have Kak, the president of Cartooning for Peace, and we have a bunch of friends from Cartooning for Peace, the director, Barbara, Laure Simoes, and some others. So, in 2006, Kofi Annan launched the idea of bringing cartoonists from around the world together at the UN for a symposium. The idea took shape and grew. It gave birth to those two NGOs at the start, Association Cartooning for Peace in Paris, and what is now the Freedom Cartoonists Foundation in Geneva. Kofi Annan was the honorary chair of the foundation. We miss him a lot. The International Award took his name in 2020. And if you accept, Nan, it would be my great pleasure to welcome you on stage. And so, question. We all know Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General. We know Kofi Annan, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, but there is a side of Kofi Annan that not many people know, the champion of editorial cartooning. So, of course, you of all people know Kofi Annan. Can you tell us more about this passion of his?
Yes, but first of all, I'm very moved to be here with all of you, celebrating the Freedom of Press Day and the courage of all those seeking the truth in a very precarious world. And what a compelling moment we had together. The passionate address of Shirin, and through all the horrors, ending with her ringing words, "Freedom will be victorious," and your faith in women in the fight for democracy. And also, Christiane, thank you for your words about Kofi, and also for your very forceful episode in the Kofi Time podcast at the Kofi Annan Foundation. So now I will start answering your question, but I couldn't. So Kofi once said, where a free press is imperiled, muzzled or banned altogether, every other freedom is limited too, and democracy itself is threatened. And this, of course, includes cartoons. In today's bleak landscape, cartoons can open spaces for discussion, exchange, reflection, and sometimes simply shared laughter. And we have seen today already here on the screen, both down here at the moment and all these wonderful three, Nadia and Willis, your courage and your wonderful, talented cartoons. And we have met many times with Kofi, as he was a great believer in cartoons to inform and mobilize. It's therefore very fitting that this award of courage bears his name. He would also be very happy that you this year focus on the courage of women and talents of women to ensure that the voices of women are included and heard. And let me just end by telling you, as a sign of Kofi's interest in cartoons, and Christiane, I can assure you that we had lots of at home, and he was actually giving rise to quite a few of himself, which it took well. And we hung them on the walls, going up the staircases to tell the stories of those momentous occasions. Of course, they are also described in countless books and articles, including his own wise and insightful full book interventions. But it's remarkable how one cartoon can capture so many emotions in just one image. And as I guided our guests around, they would, among the smiles and laughter, get a deeper sense of history. Thank you.
Thank you. Anand, just... Thank you so much. Just an anecdote, we can share it now. to tell about how deep Kofi's commitment was to political cartooning. Last time we saw him when he came to see the exhibition on the shores of Lake Geneva, the winner of the award was Muzakart. He couldn't receive the award from Turkey. He couldn't receive his award, remember, directly because he was in jail. His wife came to Geneva and got the award for him. And Kofi told us, and we were so surprised, that he had directly written to Erdogan of Turkey about the fate of Muzakart. This is to tell you how committed he was. Thank you so much, Nan. So the jury of the 2024 award was chaired by Kenneth Roth, who's here with us tonight, former executive director of Human Rights Watch, and also a member of the advisory board of the foundation. Also in the jury was Sami Kanaan for the City of Geneva, Mitu, also known as Nasreen Sultana from Bangladesh. She was representing cartoonist rights on the jury. Kak for Cartooning for Peace, and myself. And the winners of the 2024 awards are Zunzi from Hong Kong and Rashita Taneja from India. Hold on. Keep some of the applause for later, because we're going to get to know them through two small videos.
We have to wait and see who will be the first victim, how the new national security law could implement on us. Probably would take someone as an example and trying to make some chilling effect in Hong Kong. You breach the law when you make people hate the government or hate the authority. Well, of course, I just want to laugh at them. I don't hate them. This is some of my cartoon reporters, and he's spraying them. And this is the chief on security saying that, oh, that is not professional. You should use something to stop him screaming first. We'll try to test what is the real red line without being too harmful to ourselves. There's a broadcaster, there's an editor being chopped, but not very often. So don't worry. This tyranny, they like cartoonists to portray them like cruel, but they get furious if you say that they are idiots, if you say that they are morons, and I think a lot of cartoonists who job is doing that. About a year ago, my cartoon was stopped by the newspaper that I did, which I have also been working for 40 years. I don't feel too much sentimental about it. I always think that I just push the pause button instead of the stop button. That's also early works that I draw for newspaper. That's during the time when the British and China negotiating the future of Hong Kong. So this is the Tiananmen massacre, and this is China, and this making music. It tells the Hong Kong people, keep on dancing. So outside there are a lot of killings. This is perhaps my first book. In Hong Kong right now, it's all pulled down from libraries. Maybe sometimes it's just quite angry, actually. When you draw things, people are being shot, but you have to sit on the table and then you have to create a cartoon and then tell a story about it. And it's not funny, but maybe a little bit of wit inside, letting people like to see it. Not only tell what has happened, but tell what you think, what you feel. And that's the most difficult part, I think. Cartoon can be very effective in telling a story. The most important thing is that not to just lie down there and accept what our fate is. Instead, I think it is important for us to look at it and then try to remember it. Those who know the stories have to tell what Hong Kong was. I think this is, at this moment, this is what we could do right now. Perhaps my cartoon, to a certain extent, maybe one of the functions is to keeping the record of what has happened in Hong Kong. Our memory is the most important thing. This is a cocoon, but a butterfly should be coming out from the cocoon, but now it's in the other way around. The cocoon of red line is trapping a butterfly. This is a butterfly with broken wings. I think Hong Kong is like a butterfly with a broken wing.
If you are speaking your truth on the internet as a woman, and I'm sure it's even worse for religious minorities and for oppressed castes, there are rape threats and death threats and threats of violence against my loved ones. But hey, I'm getting under their skin, so it seems like I'm pissing off the right people. So the first comic I made was on censorship. Some students were arrested for posting their political opinion online, and it kind of pissed me off. I mean, how do you censor something like that? And so I made a comic and I thought to myself, oh, you want to censor something, you can censor this. And I basically just grabbed my notebook and scribbled on it and took a picture and shared it with my friends. But my comic comes from a place of a lot of anger sometimes. When I see something that feels unjust to me, I'm like, I'm going to make a comic about this. This one specifically is an angry person on the internet. Now he's confused. There's such little that I have to play with, like stick figures, they're so minimal. But there are like these small things I can do. I think sometimes I can change the way the eyebrows are or the hairstyle, and that can convey something much more than, like it does have an effect on how people perceive it. But yeah, I enjoy the challenge of trying to say more with less. Yeah.
On the 1st of December, the Attorney General gave his consent to initiate criminal contempt proceeding against artist Rachita Taneja, calling her tweets audacious assault and insult to the institution.
Felt kind of bizarre, like it's stick figures. Like, how is the highest court in the largest democracy in the world talking about my stick figures?
In January, the government proposed new rules for digital media, which would ban content the government judges to be fake or false.
Stuff isn't looking great right now. What's happening in this land is happening in many other lands, where there are supreme leaders and hate factories. But I guess we need to continue writing the story, make another comic, write another joke, organize another protest, because what else can we do?
Please, Rachita Zunzi, please come to the stage. Dr. Ebadi and Christiane. Come here, come here. Yeah. Sunzi, please come next to. Here we go. You are with me. And we are now officially presenting the awards, or I'm going to actually let our guests of honor do it, if you agree.
Oh, thank you.
To Rashida and to Zunzi.
Congratulations.
It's the wrong one.
Oops. That's much better. Come closer. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you go down now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think we have we have some gifts from Carandache, right? Karol Hübscher, the director of Carandache, would like to offer you something. Yes, what is it? Tu veux faire une photo? That's a lot of stuff to carry. No, you? Okay. Please join me, Zunzi and Rashida. You want to put it here? It's heavy, right?
Yes.
That's so heavy.
It's not that heavy.
Oh, you're going to check your luggage
like
to Hong Kong? Wow. So Zunzi, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Rashida, congratulations. And do you want to say a few words, how you feel about it?
Oh, yes.
Tell us, please come to the mic.
I have to say something, or else I can't sleep tonight. So thank you very much for having me here, and thank you, Mr. Chappatte, bring us here, and all the organizations that make this happen. Really very grateful about it, and it's a very deep grateful under my heart. And I remember the last time I have this feeling is that my wife say that I can marry you. So So actually, coming here is not only having these awards, it's also that it's a chance for me to come here and meet all the cartoonists. When I talk with them, I really learn a lot from them, especially Ratija, and he has such a different experience that we have in Hong Kong. I think maybe in some days I might face the same thing, same thing that is happening to you, and maybe your experience is good for me. And also that I have to confess something, is that I quite misjudge, thinking that because we call the umbrella revolution, that is quite a number of years ago, you thought that, wow, since the world has so many eyeball-catching things happening, maybe people would forget about Hong Kong. Although there are still trials in going on every day in Hong Kong with all the heartbreaking news result coming up. But with this reward, it shows that people outside Hong Kong are still aware about Hong Kong's press freedom and about Hong Kong's freedom of expression. So I would like to thank you very much on behalf of those who are fighting for this in Hong Kong. Thank you very much for all these efforts. Thank you. And also that as a cartoonist, actually we have to rely on journalists. If they don't have the guts to write something out, and all the brave men and women, if they don't write something out, we actually couldn't join a cartoon from it. So I have to thank them, all of these brave men and women, these journalists, some of them are in jail right now, waiting for the trial. They have been in custody for more than 3 years and still waiting for the trial. So that is quite unbearable. And other than there are more than 50 professionals. They are still in jail right now. Other than those 200-something, there are still 50 of them professionals. With them, there are teachers, social workers, and lawyers, and even a pilot, and many different doctors and journalists, of course, activists. And there are some names I like to speak out in here. These are those brave men and women that I admire very much. There's Zhao Hangtong, Benny Tai, and Jimmy Lai, Joshua Wong, Lei Chak-yan, Ho Zhen-yan, Cheng Mo Gu Si. These are the people, and actually the list will be very long. If I finish that, it will be about an hour. So these are the people that inspired me, and by their action, by what they have done. So I think I would share my honor to them with them, and maybe more than 70% for them, and I'll keep only 30% for myself. Thank you very much.
Rashida, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm happy. This award is a weapon. I mean, I can try to censor me now.
Yes, it is quite heavy, but it tells you about the weight of your work,
wow.
The importance of your
metaphor.
work. It is.
I didn't think about it like that, but thank you.
You think this can, how do you feel about it? Can it change? Can it help?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important for international journalists and audiences to talk about what's happening in India, and not a whitewashed version, and not a version that they would like for you to see outside of India. So I think it's important for international media to continue talking about the situation on ground and from reliable sources. So yeah, I think having visibility like this is very helpful for me as well. It encourages more cartoonists in the country to create and maybe to start making comics. And hopefully we'll have many, many more women cartoonists as well coming out from India. I'd also just like to take a moment to dedicate this to my father. He died last year, and he was my biggest cheerleader and also where I get my humor from. So yeah, thank you, Dad.
So, we are having many debates on the future of editorial cartooning, and so maybe you are the future. You started on the internet on your own with your comics, your web comics, and you got a lot of followers. I hope this award will bring you more followers from Switzerland. Thank you very much.
Please like, share, subscribe, click on the bell icon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Juste avant la conclusion avec Marie, je vais inviter, parce que vous avez vu un débat sur les femmes cartoonistes, et cette idée est née on a appris l'existence de cette série. Vous avez vu tout à l'heure les images de Rashida en Inde. C'était tiré de ce documentaire, cette série documentaire Dessiner pour résister, Draw for Change. 6 épisodes, 6 portraits de femmes cartoonistes. Et c'est ça qui nous a donné la puce à l'oreille. Tiens, voilà une bonne chose. Donc j'aimerais inviter sur scène la productrice de la série, Anne Pliplot, et puis aussi Bettina Hoffmann de la radio-télévision, enfin de la télévision suisse romande, qui est notre partenaire. Et puis Ducos, qui lui est allé pour nous filmer à Hong Kong le petit film que vous avez vu sur Zunzi. Can you join me on stage, Bettina, Hanne and Ducos, please. Bonjour. Is this working? Let's try with you. So, Hanne, you are the producer. Clin d'œil film. Can you want it French or English? Up to you. Okay, this is by the way, Dessiner pour résister, c'est le nom de la série sur la RTS. Là, il y a le lien, carrément, Bettina, on a bien fait les choses. Avec le lien, vous pouvez peut-être avec vos smartphones garder le lien de la série. Vous pouvez nous dire, Hanne, comment la série est née?
Bonsoir, merci de nous inviter.
Not working. Try this one.
Does it work?
No. Okay, so please come to the podium. Let's do it this way. Easy.
Merci de nous inviter. C'est vraiment un honneur ici pour moi de voir une de nos protagonistes, Rashida Taneja, qui reçoit le prix, parce que Rashida est une des femmes sur lesquelles on a fait un film. Donc, Dessiner pour résister, Draw for Change, c'est une série de 6 épisodes. La particularité de cette série, c'est que chaque épisode fait le portrait d'une femme dessinatrice du pays, mais est également réalisé par une femme réalisatrice du pays. Nous avons filmé en Russie, en Inde, en Syrie, aux États-Unis, au Mexique et en Égypte. Et c'est vrai que ce parcours que nous avons fait pendant 4 ans m'a vraiment inspirée pour défendre en fait ces dessinatrices qui ont un courage incroyable ce soir. Et donc voilà, merci.
Bettina, tu veux nous dire, du point de vue de la RTS, qu'est-ce qui vous a motivé à soutenir la série? Et aussi, bon, il y a un QR code, mais jusqu'à quand elle est visible?
D'accord. Oui, volontiers. Alors, elle est visible exceptionnellement pendant 1 année, ce qui est très très rare déjà. Et pourquoi est-ce qu'on s'est engagé dans cette série? On a découvert cette série quelques années en arrière déjà, ça prend longtemps de faire une série de films comme ça. Et donc, pour nous, il n'y avait pas beaucoup d'hésitation. Pour être franche, c'était carrément plutôt un coup de cœur. Et la raison de cela est vraiment toute simple. C'est parce que cette série met en lumière des femmes intelligentes, courageuses et drôles. Alors, dans le monde documentaire, drôle est assez rare, en fait. Donc, dès qu'on voit quelque chose de drôle, on saute dessus, mais c'est pas seulement pour ça. C'est vraiment parce que, d'abord, je pense que l'humour est une manière très fort pour engager le public. Et puis, ce que on a beaucoup aimé dans ce film, c'est aussi dans cette série, c'est les histoires humaines qui sont racontées, parce qu'on découvre les histoires de vie de ces dessinatrices qui sont parfois bouleversantes, et on découvre aussi comment ces expériences ont façonné leur univers artistique et leur regard. Chacun a son propre style, et toujours, mais toutes partagent un regard incisif et critique sur ce qui se passe dans leur pays et sur le besoin de changement. C'est une manière pertinente pour notre public de découvrir la réalité politique et sociale de ces pays. Alors, cette semaine, on a diffusé 2 épisodes de la série en miroir à cette journée de liberté de la presse, pour la liberté de la presse. Et effectivement, toute la série est disponible sur notre site Play RTS. Voilà. Donc, je vous invite à découvrir ces femmes extraordinaires.
Merci beaucoup. And Duco, an old partner of the Foundation for True Heroes Film, each time it's like a month in advance. We tell you, or just a month before the ceremony, we ask you to go wherever. So you went to Hong Kong right away. You were able to shoot this. In what circumstances can you tell you? And to edit in record time. Thank you for doing this. The small film you saw about Zunzi.
Well, I think the first thing is when people talk about dictatorships or wannabe dictatorships like Hong Kong, it's always like that in every corner there's a police agent or anybody controlling you. But I think more and more what you see in many countries where 20 years ago they would say like, get away or fuck off with your human rights. Nowadays they say like, oh yes, we think it's very important, human rights. So I think from the eyes of Zunzi, walking in the streets and filming there, it's like actually dangerous, not because the danger is around every corner, but the danger is that it's a tipping point of a country changing. And he also told me in the interview that the police nowadays is very polite. So like, mister, but in the end, they arrest you and put you in jail and everything is the same. So I think we're heading towards a world where it's dictatorships more and more know how to hide their situations. And
was it complicated to shoot this little film?
It's not complicated in a sense that if you don't care, but if you care about his position, I look everywhere where the camera. So we went to the seaside. We look if we're not followed. So it is in a sense, if you look in countries where it seems quite nice, in the end you have to be even more careful because I think the danger is even bigger in that sense.
Just remind us, when did you go to Hong Kong? A month ago, right?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
So thank you for doing this in record time. It was really, really great. Merci à vous trois. Thank you. Voilà. Merci à tous pour votre intérêt et votre écoute. Nous allons maintenant conclure. On doit remercier tous nos donateurs, Madame Heuzé. Non, on ne va pas le faire. Ils sont dans la dernière page du catalogue. Vous avez tous droit à un catalogue et vous trouverez la liste de nos donateurs, de nos soutiens, sans qui ce projet ne serait pas possible. Il faut aussi remercier les membres de notre conseil de fondation. Alors tu vas m'aider parce que j'ai pas eu le temps de finir mon texte tout à l'heure. Donc,
à deux.
Hein?
Oui.
Donc Roberta Ventura, Ryan Oudrouge, Frédéric Fritscher, Marie Heuzé, Patrick Chappatte, Charlotte de Sénarclan. On remercie. Oui, c'est déjà pas mal. Qui travaille beaucoup. Myriam Oudrouge, sans qui rien de tout cela n'aurait été possible.
Chef d'orchestre.
Et nous remercions également les membres de notre advisory board. On en a cité tout à l'heure Kenneth Roth, Christiane Amanpour,
Anne Telnes,
Christophe Deloire de Reporters sans frontières, Gado et Rémi Best
et
Corinne Momalvagnan de la Fondation Kofi Annan. Merci à eux.
Alors, la conclusion est toujours difficile à faire. Alors, pour nous, c'était un véritable défi de réunir pendant 2 heures des personnes aussi prestigieuses, aussi engagées et déterminées à saisir, et je vais reprendre les termes de Shirin Ebadi, à saisir coûte que coûte toutes les possibilités pour construire une société de paix, de prospérité, de développement humain. Alors avec nos partenaires officiels, on a finalement assez bien réussi, puisque vous êtes tous là, même avec des problèmes d'avion absolument considérables. Et cela me fait penser à ce que Kofi Annan avait lancé, sa petite idée, quand on était à New York en 2006, de faire un réseau de dessinateurs. Ça m'a fait penser aussi à ce que l'écrivain et philosophe Albert Camus, quand il a reçu le prix Nobel de la paix, le prix Nobel de littérature en 1957, disait « Les grandes idées viennent dans le monde sur des pattes de colombe. Peut-être, si nous prêtions l'oreille, nous entendrions, au milieu du vacarme des empires et des nations, comme un faible bruit d'ailes, le doux remue-ménage de la vie et de l'espoir. Les uns diront que cet espoir est porté par un peuple, l'Iran par exemple, d'autres par un homme, un leader, ou par un mouvement. Aujourd'hui, les cartoonistes du monde entier, les dessinateurs de presse, font partie de ce mouvement qui alerte, qui fait sourire, Mais dans le chaos du monde, on a besoin de cette respiration. Les lauréats du prix Kofi Annan, les productrices et les réalisateurs de films et de programmes radio que nous venons d'entendre font exactement partie de ce mouvement et il faut qu'on le continue. Puissent-ils exercer leur talent, leur esprit critique, leur humour pour notre plaisir, mais aussi pour nous inciter à réfléchir sur nos propres valeurs et sur nos engagements pour la vie communautaire.
That's a beautiful conclusion. So just one last word. Do not miss the exhibition on K. Wilson until June 2, an exhibition with the help of Cartooning for Peace of cartoonists from all around the world until June 2. And as we part away, maybe we'll be seeing on the screen some more of the sketches that were done by our friends cartoonists. See you in 2 years.
In 2 years.